What's up, guys? Tyler here. So today's video I'm going to talk about a couple of companies that when you think of one, you typically will think of the other. That's the lead into this video. So we'll start with Sears. We'll talk about its beginning and then go through the entire history of the company up to modern day. So we'll start in the very beginning. In the year 1886, a man by the name of Richard W. Sears bought a shipment of watches that a local jeweler refused to sign for. It's not documented what the reasoning was, but for whatever reason, R.W. Sears ends up with this shipment of watches. And so eventually, while working as a Minnesota railway station agent, he established a side job of selling those watches to some of the other station agents. Then a few months later, Mr. Sears decided to quit his job with the railway to establish the R.W. Sears Watch Company in Minneapolis. Then the next year, in 1887, he decided to move the company from Minneapolis to Chicago. And after placing an ad in a Chicago newspaper, a watchmaker by the name of Alva C. Roebuck was brought into the business. And by 1893, that successful partnership officially became Sears, Roebuck and Company. And they quickly expanded their business into a general mail order catalog that catered to America's rural population of the 19th century. And at this time, roughly 2/3 of Americans lived in rural areas, which was around the late 1890s. And local general stores were typically selling high-priced items and had very small selections, which kind of obviously made it pretty difficult for people to spend money at that time because there was such a small selection. But with the Sears catalog, it offered America's farming families plenty of options at a lower cost, and it usually included delivery. So the Sears and Roebuck mail order business, it quickly took off because it contained more than 500 pages of merchandise. And rural Americans could now purchase hundreds of items, ranging from shoes to women's garments, wagons, fishing items and accessories, furniture, china, musical instruments, firearms, and bicycles, and so much more, by mail, since it was a successful business method that fit with the times. And in 1895, a Chicago clothing manufacturer by the name of Julian Rosenwald bought the company and retained R.W. Sears as president of the company. And at this time, Roebuck resigned due to the fact that his health was starting to decline. And at this time, the company needed capital for its rapidly expanding business. In 1906, Rosenwald and Sears sold stock on the open market. And Sears has been a publicly owned and traded company ever since. So now we're going to talk about the homes division of Sears. And so Sears took advantage of a new market for home building materials and construction techniques at the turn of the 20th century. Between 1908 and 1940, Sears sold between 70,000 and 75,000 prefab kit homes by mail order. And these mass-produced materials lowered the manufacturing costs, and it often benefited consumers because they could purchase a small bungalow for as little as $450 at that time. And Sears modern homes would typically arrive with detailed instructions and 2 boxcars worth of building materials. And the kit homes used drywall, asphalt shingles, and balloon-style light frame construction to lower the cost of skilled labor and allow for DIY installation. And due to their high-quality materials and practical design, many Sears homes are still in use today. So think about that. Some of these homes were built in the early 1900s and as late as maybe the 1950s or so, and they still stand today. So that shows, again, just the quality and practicality of what they were doing with those. So now let's talk about the Sears stores. So as more Americans started moving into the cities in the 20th century, Sears was facing the loss of its rural customer base. So the city dwellers had easy access to a variety of stores and didn't need mail order catalogs since they could just go to the stores. And the company's response was to open its first brick and mortar department store in 1925 on Chicago's west side. And early Sears department stores typically opened in working class neighborhoods outside of the major city shopping districts. And Sears was one of the first department stores that catered to men and women by selling tools and hardware. Its merchandise emphasized durability and practicality over fashion, and its store layout allowed customers to select goods without the aid of an employee. And then in the 1950s and 60s, Sears began to shift its focus from urban to suburban markets, and the Sears name became synonymous with the suburban shopping experience. Their large department stores anchored shopping malls across the country, and Sears catered to motorists by expanding their automotive services. So as you can see, Sears is starting to build this reputation of just being where the people needed those stores to be at and being able to cater to their market base and being quick to adapt to the times, which is part of why it became so successful, at least in the beginning. And some brands that Sears created, all of which I'm sure you've heard of at least. Kenmore appliances. They first appeared on a sewing machine sold in the Sears catalog back in 1913. And the first Kenmore washing machine was introduced in 1927, and the first vacuum cleaner in 1932. Kenmore then continued its expansion to household appliances such as refrigerators, freezers, and air conditioners, and so on, like you see today. And another brand is Craftsman, and we'll get more in detail with them in a little bit. But Sears acquired the Craftsman trademark and sold its first brand tools in 1927. Craftsman later branched out into lawnmowers, portable power tools, and electric razors to serve a growing suburban customer base. So again, with the products that Sears sold, they were adapting to their customer base and the times, which again helped them be successful for a long, long time. Allstate car insurance. Sears founded Allstate Insurance Company in 1931, and Allstate offered low rates on auto insurance through the Sears mail order catalog and later through sales booths inside the retail stores. The company became completely independent in 1995 after Sears divested its Allstate stock to shareholders. And the last one I'm going to talk about here is the Discover Card. So Sears added financial services to its repertoire in 1985 when they introduced the Discover Card. It was the first to offer cash rewards to customers based on how much their credit card was used. The Discover Card became widely popular. How popular? 20 million people had the card within 4 years. And by the end of the 1980s, credit operations made up a big portion of Sears' revenue. And then in the mid-1990s, Sears sold off the Discover Card and their other financial operations. Basically because of kind of like what you saw there with some of their other brands. They were starting to kind of see the writing on the wall, and I'll get to that here actually right now. So in 1991, Walmart surpassed Sears as the nation's largest retailer. So for a while, Sears just dominated the market for retail. And then throughout the 90s, Sears faced increased competition from numerous big box stores that offered even lower prices than they did. In 2004, big box retailer Kmart purchased Sears, and Wall Street hedge fund manager Edward Lampart oversaw the merger and took over as CEO of the newly created Sears Holdings Corporation. And over the next 15 years, Sears lost half its revenue and laid off nearly 175,000 people as it battled to keep up with the advancement of online retailers. In 2017 alone, Sears Holdings closed more than 350 Sears stores and Kmart stores nationwide, with an additional 60 to be closed in early 2018. In March of 2017, Sears sold its Craftsman brand to Stanley Black & Decker. And later on, Sears announced a deal to sell Kenmore appliances through the online retailer Amazon. So basically you can kind of see there just the fact that with places like Walmart, all these other places, and then Amazon coming into the picture, Sears just started losing their portion of the market share, and from there, it's all gone downhill. All right, so now that I've covered Sears, we're going to talk about Craftsman now, from the beginning all the way to today. It all began in 1927, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, when Craftsman tools were brought into the world. Then in 1929, Craftsman electric drills were put on the market and described as, quote, powerful, of rugged construction, well balanced, and easily handled, end quote. In 1932, the first wrench made of vanadium steel was reported at 50% thinner but 200% stronger than previous models. Then in 1934, lawnmowers launched at a significant cost advantage over other models sold by other stores. In 1940, Craftsman power tool sales were reported at an increase of 1,550% since their introduction. So yeah, talk about a boom right there. From 1941 and 1942, Craftsman developed a reputation for being reliable tools for aircraft schools and being important in, quote, building up America's defense in airplane plants, defense industries, and industrial schools, end quote. In 1950, a salesman named Ed Falk stocked a truck with Craftsman merchandise and set out on a 10,000-mile journey across America. The mobile tool store was so successful that they rolled out another truck the following year. So talk about an innovative idea for the times, being able to take the tools to the people instead of the people having to go to the store or ordering them through the mail. In 1953, as suburbs continued to grow and lawns becoming more and more commonplace, Craftsman introduced riding mowers at $350 each, which for the time was a pretty good price. Then in 1955, Craftsman reported that 1.5 million units of rotary mowers had been sold to date. Then in 1959, Craftsman introduced the Power Workshop, a 5-in-1 tool which was designed to save time, money, and space. It combined a tilting arbor bench saw, joint planer, jigsaw, saber saw, and a disc sander, all in one tool. And all of those tools would have been very, very common at the time. So to have all of those in one obviously was a huge advantage for consumers. Then in 1965, Craftsman rolled out a fleet of tool trucks to head to mechanic shops, each of which was stocked with more than $5,000 worth of tools. In 1974, Craftsman introduced electric rotary and riding mowers. Then in 1977, Craftsman celebrated the 50th anniversary of the brand. In 1984, Craftsman introduced the first electronic, portable, and bench power tools. And then in 1991, Craftsman debuted what's called Craftsman's Club, which saved members more than $250,000 in the first 4 months. It was a membership that included the following benefits: deal alerts, product news, sampling opportunities, warranty, and product management tools. And it's actually still in existence today. If you go on the Craftsman website, you can find the Craftsman Club membership, and there's a two different levels. There's a free membership and then there's a paid membership. The only difference is that with the paid membership, you get the warranty and product management tools, so you can register tools for the warranty and all of that sort of thing. In 1994, in one season, when the lawnmowers are typically sold in retailers, Craftsman reported that more than 1 million lawnmowers were sold, which was a first across the entire industry. So that's big news right there. And 1994 was a good year because that's when I was introduced to the world. And then in 1995, for those of you that are NASCAR fans, you'll recognize this. Craftsman became the title sponsor of the debuting NASCAR Craftsman Super Truck Series. Or the Truck Super Series. Excuse me. Then in 2000, Craftsman tools are made available at more than 150 Army and Air Force base exchanges and post exchanges worldwide. Then in 2002, Craftsman celebrated 75 years in business with a catalog featuring more than 4,000 items, including 739 new products. Then in 2010, Craftsman launched its first concept showroom called the Craftsman Experience, where it's basically just a retail store kind of thing, just exclusively with Craftsman products. Then in 2011, Craftsman products were made available through Ace Hardware and Costco, which they still sell Craftsman products to this day, as far as I am aware. The next year, 2012, Craftsman celebrated its 85th anniversary. And then, like I also mentioned earlier, in 2017, Craftsman was sold to the company called Stanley Black & Decker, which we all know that particular brand. So one thing I want to add in here to this portion of the video, so a couple years ago, Menards started selling Craftsman tools and other products and in our stores, and I will say at first I was a little excited about it, because I was interested in seeing kind of how that would bring in more people to our stores. And to be honest, it's at first it was exciting for me, but then after a while it just kind of became, old and tired, because people would bring in their Craftsman tools that they bought from other stores, and they would ask us, well, can we honor the warranty? And my response to people then and now is, if we have that tool in stock, like the exact tool, yeah, we can honor the warranty. But if you bought it from another store, there's no guarantee that we'll have that exact same tool or product in our store. But nowadays, we don't have a whole lot of Craftsman tools, because we started clearancing those out about 1.5 years ago, which was pretty weird, just the fact that we started bringing in all this stuff and we had to clear out space on the shelves for these Craftsman tools, and then a little over 1.5 years later, we start clearancing everything out. So, and I remember one time I asked a customer, because he came in with a tool and he's like, hey, I called Craftsman, and they said they can, at any place that sells Craftsman tools, they can honor the warranty. And at first I just asked him, so do you have the receipt? And he goes, I don't need a proof of purchase. I'm like, I'm not asking because of proof of purchase. Why I'm asking is because I can look up if we have that same model here. So, because if we have it, we can do a 1-for-1 swap up at the front service desk. And after a while of kind of trying to explain it to the guy, he eventually understood what I was saying. Because, like, if you buy a Craftsman tool at Ace Hardware, for example, there's no guarantee that Menards, even when we first started selling those products, that we were going to have that exact same tool in our stores. So that's why I would ask people if they had the receipt, because I can look up the model number on our website and I could see, yeah, we have that tool, or no, we don't. Or I can at least see, hey, it's not the exact same length of wrench or whatever, but we have that same size is just a little bit shorter. And a lot of people would kind of take the best that they could get or whatever. So in my opinion, it kind of became annoying after a while, because people would ask if we honored the warranty, and I'm like, yes. Or our response is usually yes, but to an extent. Very rarely could we ever do a one-for-one swap. So, and that was a concept that was hard for people to understand. So that's the history of both Sears and Craftsman. Hopefully you found this educational and found it at least somewhat interesting. So in the comments below, if you want to add in your feedback on if I should do more or not do any more, please let me know so that I can just kind of know what to do going forward. So until next time, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for your continued support. Have a great day. God bless.